Then good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our Future of Work session 5 with a title, A Healthy Mind is an Asset. I'm very thrilled to be here today with all of you and together with Professor Kang, with Doreen, and as well as Najwa. Perhaps before we start off our today's session, I would like to invite Professor Kang to say a few words.
Oh, I wasn't anticipating that, Honey. Caught me by surprise. Anyway, thank you very much. I just want to thank Honey and our participants today for coming. This is the first Future of Work webinar for this year, for 2022. We've been having it since 2021, and we definitely love it to continue. We discuss a lot of topics, current topics as well. And the Future of Work webinar is about how the future will impact work and workspace as it is happening right now before our eyes with MCO, working from home. How is that going to impact mental health? And that brings me to our topic today about mental health. So without any further ado and without any addition of my own, back to you, Honey, and the rest of our participants, our esteemed participants.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And I feel, as I mentioned, I'm very thrilled to be here today simply because the topic, this particular topic is a very interesting topic. It's close and dear to my heart, and simply because some of the work that we're doing across the board, you know, from students to professionals, even up to top board members, we are always talking about a healthy mind, you know, trying to find the balancing act between work, study, to having a well-being taken care of. And as the COVID-19 pandemic continues in Malaysia, mental health issues, it is taking a growing toll across the country, like in much of the world. Social isolation, economic insecurities, and the loss of loved ones have become major drivers of anxiety, depression, stress, and other challenges. In Malaysia, mental health problems were already on the rise. Yeah, government statistics show rates of mental health issues have tripled over the past 2 decades, and the economic impact on the country is expected to surge to 6 trillion USD by 2030. According to the 2019 National Health and Mobility Survey, roughly 500,000 people in Malaysia reported some symptoms of depression. And as of yesterday, I think some of the statistics I was reading is that 1 out of 4 are going through some form of mental depression. It used to be 1 out of 5, I think, more than 5 years ago, but now it has increased. And therefore today, with the topic of a healthy mind is an asset, I hope would open up more discussion, and we're trying to address a few content in regards to how to address a healthy mind and how do we provide some support within our ecosystem. So with this in mind, I would love to introduce to all of you 4 of our esteemed speakers today. Let me welcome Professor Philip George. Prof, welcome to our session today. It's great to see you today. A brief bio on Professor Dr. Philip George. Professor Dr. Philip George is a consultant psychiatrist and addiction specialist. He is presently head of psychiatry at the International Medical University. He is also an honorary consultant psychiatrist at Hospital Tuanku Jaafar Seremban, a visiting consultant psychiatrist at Asunta Hospital, and visiting consultant psychiatrist at the Mind Faculty Mont Kiara in Kuala Lumpur. He graduated with MBBS in 1988 from Manipal, India, and did his master's in psychiatry in 1996 at Malaysian National University, or UKM. Yeah, he completed a certificate in substance abuse with the University of Melbourne in 2003. His work experience includes a 2-year staff specialist position at the Drug and Alcohol Unit of the Canberra Hospital, Australia, and locum psychiatrist at the Refugee Processing Centre, Republic of Nauru from 2016 to 2019. He has more than 40 publications in journals and chapters and books. His areas of interest are in prevention of substance abuse, schizophrenia, managing stress, and elderly depression. Welcome, Dr. Philip George. You have a very illustrious background, and I would love to hear your thoughts on some of the questions that, or some of the topics that we're going to discuss today.
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction, Hani.
You are most welcome. And the next speaker that whom I'm going to introduce would be Mr. Edmund Tay. Mr. Edmund Tay, welcome on board. Good to see you today. A brief bio on Mr. Edmund Tay. Mr. Edmund Tay, an integral figure who is among the most sought after speaker for university students as well as fresh graduates. He has spoken on platforms such as Google Ignite, Graduate Employability Bootcamp by Talent Corp, Falcon Education Fair, K3G, JPA Scholars Workshop, and many, many more. Edmund has been working closely with various higher learning institutions, ministries, and government agencies with a mission of improving lives through better careers. With a vast experience in conducting series of speaking engagement related to careers and trainings for university students as well as fresh graduates, Edmund contributed a significant amount towards the development of Malaysian talent. He is also the member of the Employability Advisory Council of Department of Polytechnic, Ministry of Education, Malaysia. In his latest role, Edmund has decided to venture into talent management and branding. And seeing this as an area that is becoming a burning platform for many organizations, he decided to join TMC Life Sciences Berhad as the manager, talent management and branding for the group human resources to identify the right talent for its current and future needs. And Edmund graduated with Bachelor of Business Administration, Marketing with Multimedia from Multimedia University. He is also a certified neuro-linguistic program practitioner. Welcome on board, Edmund. Good to see you today.
Yeah, good to see you too.
We will have quite a bit of a discussion on your areas of expertise in regards to our topic today.
Sure, no worries.
Awesome. Our third speaker, Mr. Alvin Tan. Mr. Alvin Tan, welcome on board. A brief background on Alvin. Alvin is a qualified psychologist registered with the Malaysian Society of Clinical Psychologists. With a passion in personal development, his mission is to facilitate adults, especially working professionals, achieve their fullest potential. Because of that, he has logged significant hours in private consultation sessions with clients from various backgrounds. He manages a mental health practice and has also started up an online application to allow more digital accessibility to counseling services. He has also been actively involved with professional training and talks throughout the span of his career. This includes coaching and experiential-based training of university students in developing emotional intelligence. Alvin is currently the director of People Psychological Solution, a private mental health practice located in Mont Kiara, Kuala Lumpur. Welcome on board, Alvin. Happy to see you today. And I think more discussion items that we're going to have today on the topic.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You're most welcome. And last but not least, let us welcome Ms. Hazika Pakirgani. Miss Hazika Pakirgani is a final year psychology student from International Medical University who is ever passionate to learn the intricacies of the mind. Wonderful. Illustrious background. Yeah, she is one of the top 100 people in Asia to win the Monstar Young Talents Award 2021 and the winner of her university's Research Hackathon 2020, along with her team members. She was also one of the former team leaders of the iHeal Vaccination Center, where she was not only dealing with patients' conflicts, but also translated important forms from English to Tamil and Bengali to promote information equality for migrant workers. During her spare time, she's a big advocate for social and political justice in current affairs. She believes that in order to change the society, we need to start with what's most important to us, our mindset. I love it. And welcome on board, Hazika.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hani. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a real pleasure to be with all of our speakers. And now I think what will happen is that I do have, I've already introduced all of our speakers. And with that, I would like to invite Dr. Philip George to perhaps come back to our session and share with us in terms of your expertise, with your expertise in adult psychiatry and substance abuse. Can you share with us a little bit more on your opinion on today's topic, which is a healthy mind is an asset?
Yeah, thanks, Honey. Yeah, I think it's good that you're having this whole thing to discuss about mental health. Prior to the pandemic, a lot of these discussions on mental health were, sidelined, were sort of minimized and not put in the forefront because, everyone was maybe concerned about other things. I mean, financial health and, maybe physical health, all of that played a bigger role in terms of what people were attracted to. I mean, personally, I know when I worked in Sabah, back in about 1998, there were CMEs for education of the doctors and healthcare professionals, but they didn't include mental health. They didn't think it was important. And when I approached the director of the hospital to say that we should include something on mental health, he said, no, we are too busy with trying to save lives. What's mental health got to do with it? So we've lost the plot even before the pandemic. People have put it as something, as an afterthought. And that's why we are seeing this huge, increase in mental health issues and, people just giving up and suicide rates going off the roof. So I think, for a long time, we've actually neglected this important area of health because we, associated with, strength and, how strong are we? And so that's not health, that's a personal issue. And, it's, so we got to understand it from a health perspective. And as a psychiatrist, I am passionate about, looking at how we can use, our mind to be an asset, because a lot of people neglect their mind and give up on the important mental health aspects in their life and end up with mental illness. So all of that could have been prevented if they actually put the investment. I mean, it's just like you brushing your teeth every morning. You're not doing it because you got caries and your teeth are all black. You're doing it because you want to prevent that.
Yes.
But what effort and time do you spend every day on your mental health? To prevent depression or anxiety, as you said, 1 in 4 are going to be affected. And what are you putting in to help with that? So, yeah, I hope I answer that question.
Yes, absolutely. And I think due to the pandemic, it has also risen up to the fact that everybody is almost connected on certain platform virtually, and that has just risen up to the fact that many people now are aware that mental wellness is quite prevalent in so many spaces across the board, from students, professionals. And I think we are here today, and I'm seeing so many young students as well as professionals. I'm looking at several names here. I know that these are professionals; they're no longer in the universities. Do you think that with the pandemic is also a blessing in disguise, that people have started to realize that mental wellness is real?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a silver lining. But I mean, are we walking the talk? We discuss it and we talk about it, but are we putting in, the instruments, the infrastructure, the resources to actually make it accessible and available, and to improve people's mental health? I mean, I know some corporations, especially the multinational ones, have taken an important step forward with this and have looked at how they can nurture and build mental health among their own employees. Even my own university is doing it. And I think they're doing quite a bit in terms of, how they support their own staff and their students. But is everyone on top? Is everyone on board, or is everyone just talking about it? And, hangat tai ayam sort of thing,
Yeah, I think you have posed the right question here. Are we really walking the talk? And I think with Mr. Edmund Tay here today, Mr. Alvin Tan and Hazika here today to provide that perspective from the practitioner, from the students, and as well as from the corporate perspective, I think would provide us with some input on whether we're really walking the talk. Yeah, so thank you so much. Let's hear from Mr. Edmund Tay. Mr. Edmund Tay, you are now with I would say one of the biggest hospitals in Malaysia. Can I just pose the next question to you, Mr. Edmund Tay?
Sure.
All right. So I know for a fact, or rather we all know for a fact, that mental health can have a serious impact on business. And with the organization current and best practice in supporting mental health at workplace, would you like to share with all of us what has been, the current practice in your organization, perhaps, and what have you been observing in terms of trending in managing mental wellness at workplace?
Okay, actually in Malaysia, mental healthcare, right, I would say is still very immature, because it's not something that we keep on saying out or keep on telling everybody that I have mental issue or even I have depressed, because it's not something normal in Malaysia to share with everyone that I have mental problem. Okay, I think it's also because of our culture. If I believe, especially those from kampung or from anywhere, if let's say you suddenly found out that someone is abnormal, let's say depressed or not talking, the first thing that you seek is not doctors, is the shaman. You see that this one must be gangguan, jinn, or whatever things, whether it's Chinese, Malay, or Indian, the first thing to seek is all this. Am I right? So actually, there's very less or talk about mental health, and especially in organizations, because mental health is always been sidelined, because it's not something I would say tangible or something that can prove that you have the mental health. Because when you tell the organization, hey, I have mental health, I'm depressed, but in the eye of everyone, hey, you are just overreacting. Hey, you sure or not? Normally, I see you okay. What, you can deliver your job, you can do this, and you are someone very cheerful. But it's not something that really people could understand, because there's no education, even in our education, right? There's nobody tell us what is mental health. So I think we really need to educate the public, or not even the public, even the ministry. You really need to look into this. So of course, there's a lot of type that contribute to mental health. Sometimes even during the, okay, I think just because I would say COVID really raised the awareness, because the suicide case has increased, and then and this have triggered trigger the companies, hey, these things are real. And it also caused the productivity issue. And because a lot of them, especially during COVID time, right, when the pandemic hits, right, people are struggling to live. Okay, they were laid off. There's no salary coming in, and most important, they can't social. Just like a normal day in sitting in mama or to talk about or just to meet up is very hard. A lot of people go crazy just because of that. Okay, so that's why companies are start to looking into mental health care, and before this, I think most of the insurance company also don't cover mental health. No, not part of it. But lately, some of the companies or insurance companies start to promote mental health insurance coverage for their staff. Although it's not a lot, but I think it's a good start. Okay, so actually in organization, most of it, we are starting to look into that. Let's say about Thomson Hospital. So actually before the pandemic, we also know that a lot, because in our hospital, most of the workforce actually are women. Okay, so actually they also have some kind of depression or even some mental health that we encounter. Mostly is taking care of their children, because they need to balance in between taking care of their child or come to the hospital to work, and sometimes they have to take care of their husband. So what we do in order to reduce their stress, right? Because we keep on getting complaints from them. Actually, I can't balance between my taking off my child, taking care of my husband, or come to work. So a lot of them, they rather resign. There's a drastic things that they do. They resign, but it does not solve the problem. So what we do in Thomson Hospital, we actually started a childcare center, 365 days. Even public holiday, we provide for them, because we don't want them to have problem in or finding excuses. Hey, I can't come to work because of my child. I can't let my child go to other childcare center. So what we do, we start a childcare center nearer to our hospital, so that during their off day or even their break time, right, they can go and visit their children. And we give them a subsidized rate. So we don't want them to be financially burdened also, because we know that financial is also one of the triggering factors that make them stress. So we solve the first thing is that 365 days, public holidays, all those, our childcare is still open and with subsidized rate. So the first problem is solved, which is the taking care of child or their safety issues. Second is also, we also want to ensure that, because working in hospital is 24 hours actually, some of them, especially the workforce, mostly are women, right? They are also very concerned in terms of their security. So what we do, we ensure them that if, let's say, they really need help, let's say going to a nearer hospital or even at late night, that they are not comfortable to take their car. So we already advise them, please, if you saw a security guard, ask them to accompany you to the car for your safety reason. So because all of this, if let's say we take this for granted, because this might be a very small matter, but it will slowly trigger the insecurity in that particular person, and slowly it will increase the stress, and slowly we develop into mental health. That's why all these small items or small gesture that were done by the organizations, right, really can help. It could be as simple as just maybe you granted maybe like I know some of the organizations, especially the MNCs, right now they start to have this policy. You can take 3 days annual leave without any reason at all, or no need to apply. They call this rest day leave or rechargeable leave, something like that. Where if let's say today you feel very stressful, you can't work, right? You just tell the company, hey, I'm taking my leave today. It's not EL, but it's this 3 days unrecorded leave. Yeah, so that you could go home and recharge. You no need to tell me what is it for, whether it's to bring your cat to see vet, or whether you just want to go and relax, or whether you just want to stay at home. This is actually a very good culture that is can help in terms of a good practice, I would say, in terms of supporting the mental health. But not a lot of company will do that, because it's all about profit and cents, I would say. Unfortunately. Yeah, in private sectors, of course, money and sense is still bring a very I would say it's important. Like without profit and sense, right? Nobody would like to invest actually. But a lot of people also do not understand that actually your main asset, right, in a company is actually your talents. Your staff.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, can you imagine those who are not being productive because they worry about a lot of other things and having a
Yes.
mental breakdown, they do not
Yes,
perform.
but
Yeah.
let's say we see in terms of the employees, right? You also can't blame a lot of employers. Yes, I do believe, I do agree that part of the employers is mainly focusing on profit or don't even care about their employee. But you do also understand that in Malaysia, some of the employees itself are acting and their productivity is low. They can simply give you a reason. Hey, tire pump cheat lah, my car can't function lah, I'm sick lah, MC lah. But even though, right, let's see the fact. In Southeast Asia, Malaysia is one of the lowest productive country in Southeast Asia, and we can't deny that. But can you imagine in Malaysia average, I think 2 or 3 years, no, I think 5 years back when they do a study on the Malaysia productivity, right? Malaysian only work about, I think, 4 hours a day or less than that. I mean, most of the productivity, right? But if let's say try to imagine, if let's say the company is giving extra 3 more days in unrecorded leave, try to imagine 4 hours a day, the productivity, and now down to how many hours? So actually there's chicken and egg, I would say. And employers actually, some of the employers can see that the productivity is not there and they are already paying a substantial amount of salary. And that's why if let's say any increase in terms of benefits or even annual leave, right, if you increase the cost of that particular company. So I would say there's no right or wrong, but it depends on how the society or how do we see this scenario. But I think most important is that the government really need to step in and really need to look into this actually, because if let's say the government is able to in some way, right, of support or incentive or an incentivize the companies to give all this extra leave or even this doing childcare center or even some small gesture that they could redeem back or some kind of tax deduction, right? I believe most of the company will do that. The problem now is because due to the 2 years COVID, SMEs are not really generating enough to cover themselves. And now government is coming out with the minimum wage. I think now it's not only the employee are having mental health issue, even the employers are having the mental health issue.
Sure, looking at the bottom line is just corroding, isn't it?
Yes, correct. So it's never ending story, but I think for now, for because of the pandemic, right, a lot of companies, I would say, is taking the right step towards in looking into the staff mental health. Yes. I would say.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think there are many instances where I'm observing a more progressive policies. In terms of managing productivity in organizations. I know for a fact that Edmund, one of the companies that I'm quite aware of right now is advocating unlimited annual leave.
Oh.
And I think that is just so progressive.
Yeah.
So I mean, it depends on what kind of approach that we as organization wants to manage, you know, in terms of productivity and relating it to the wellness of its employees. Right. So thanks so much for your input. I have another long list of discussion items that I would like to discuss with you. But before we go on to that, may I now invite Alvin, Mr. Alvin Tan from People Psychological Solution to share some thoughts on this particular topic. And perhaps before we get into that, would you like to share a little bit more about your work, Alvin?
Yes, I'm happy to be here. Now, likely I'm able to comment more as the discussion evolves. But primarily my work has to do with consulting clients. They are adults. We only see adults here, late teens to adults in private practice.
Yes.
And the services that we offer are psychological assessments, psychological therapy. But similar to what can be seen in the community is that most clients that come in here would likely experience some kind of common mental disorders. So primarily anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, and usually, so relating this back to work, when a person has, let's say a diagnosed depression or anxiety disorder, we likely see that there is an impairment to functioning. That is when other aspects of their life may see a decline in their functioning as well. They may not be as effective at work. They might not be as effective in their relationships, and likely that is where social disruption happens. So they might get in trouble with their employers. They might practice absenteeism, presenteeism. So they go to work, but actually due to mental health issues, they aren't performing as well, or it could lead to a higher turnover at the workplace as well.
Oh, pretty much there. And I'm relating to this to, a scenario where there was a research before this, and research shows that people with mental health problems, anxiety and depression, that are more likely to have a preventable physical health condition, which is interesting in terms of its relationship. What do you think about this? There's an interrelationship between the mental wellness as well as physical health condition.
Yeah, and I think mental health and physical health cannot be separate. So our mind and our body and our behavior, they are all interlinked. So when my mind isn't at a good place, it's quite likely that I behave in ways which wouldn't be healthy for my physical well-being as well. So we have like the direct relationships and indirect ones. So indirect ones are oftentimes due to behavioral changes that happens. When we are, let's say, more depressed, we tend to be more behaviorally inactivated. That is when we have lower physical activity, lower social activities, lower goal-directed activities, which will mean that with lower physical activities, people who feel depressed may tend to do less. So less going out, less exercise, less movement, and more of short-term emotional relief. So with anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, we may see that there is an increased intake of food, especially more fatty or food that's high in sugar, increased intake in alcohol, smoking, or even substances. And all these intake of excess intake of either food, alcohol, substances, alongside the lowered physical activity, would have an increased risk of physical illnesses such as diabetes, heart disease, liver diseases, and so on. So those are the indirect ways of how our behavior changes as a result of our mental health. But we also have direct changes. And what we understand about anxiety, stress has a role in that. And for the longest time, it was thought that stress and anxiety, they sort of come hand in hand. But in more recent studies on the role of stress also, it has a role in depressive disorders as well, development of depressive disorders. So with the exposure to stress, chronic stress, some of the direct changes that happens physically for us are structural changes in the brain. So we have like changes to especially in areas of the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is important for memory and learning. Our immune system is affected. So, you may have a busy time of all these deadlines. You may notice that, and that's true for me, while growing up, if it's exam period or, tough deadlines when I was working. After that, when everything's done, I tend to fall sick because our immune system is impaired under intense stress. It also affects our cardiovascular system, our gastrointestinal system.
Yes.
leading to increased risk of heart disease or gastrointestinal sort of inflammatory diseases. That stress has a direct role in all of these things.
My goodness, my goodness.
Mhm.
Alvin, I have a friend. He is an HR director, very stressful life, apparently, according to him. And whenever that he's really, really, really stressful, he gets this severe headache, and he just, consider himself just out of whack and can't function. It's just so kasihan. And we know when he's under a lot of stress, when he started having medical leave.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to separate the both. Oftentimes it's like, two of the same thing. So when I see clients in sessions, with anxiety disorders, they may have already went through a variety of different medical specialists, medical examinations, and then they're here in therapy sessions because it's more related to stress or psychological issue instead. Physical or somatic symptoms and psychological, oftentimes the presentation is quite mixed.
Yeah, I agree with you. And there was also another friend, a young friend who, going through some depression moments, and she tends to sleep throughout the day for many, many days. And just rightly so, as what you mentioned, the social interaction is becoming lesser and lesser. And there were times when we actually had to go to her house just to check on her because she wasn't answering any phone calls. So that was scary. That was scary. Right. So thanks so much for sharing that from your perspective. I think the next question that I would like to invite a little bit of sharing will be from Hazika. And I think this particular perspective is very, very crucial from the perspective of someone from the university, young minds who are not quite there in the corporate world just as yet, but I think very, very close to her heart is the wellness of her friends in university. So Hazika, I am reserving you for the last for this question, simply because I think there are so many narratives about the situation in university, especially during final years and all that. Now we also have some indications. Again, this is based on observations, some research and all that. And I personally have worked with many young professionals and fresh grads as well. There was one session. There was one session where someone actually sent me a note to say that she or he have written, "My life ends tomorrow." So that was kind of scary, And so my item of discussion with you is that is it true among students, from your observation, anxiety, depression, and eating disorders are common? And what's your observation, and what has your experience been for the past few years?
Thank you, Miss Honey. Sorry. Thank you, Miss Honey. Okay, so if it's in terms of the disorder, whether or not it is common among university students, I'd say that probably I can't quite say that I'm qualified enough to say yes, that there are a lot of people with disorders, but whether or not they have the traits of anxiety, depression, and eating disorder, then I'd say I do notice it a lot around me of students having these traits, like you mentioned about how you knew someone who wrote about the suicidal note, right? Yeah. So unfortunately, that's also something, not the suicidal note, but the suicidal traits are also quite commonly seen, especially when it's the peak of the semester, and you would notice that a lot of students, they would start getting really stressed out, and they would start saying things like, "I wish I was dead," or "Oh, I wish I would just drop out," or things like that. Yeah, it can get really hard. So yeah, a lot of the times I notice, I especially notice this when it is the peak of the semester. When it's like sem break, not as much. So it's possibly correlated to the amount of workload and also the need to basically the need to achieve, the need to always perform well. There's always that pressure that we need to compete with each other. There's always that pressure that we need to get a certain CGPA, because people always say that, you know, the work world out there is competitive. You want to get certain masters, you have to perform well. And there are so many people who are already getting access to education. There's so many people who also want to do the same thing that you want to do. So you always want to make sure that you do well. So the pressure can be a lot. And that's why, aside from the workload, there's also your own expectations about yourself that drives you to actually go out of your way and develop these traits. So yeah, this is something that I have commonly noticed among people around me. Yeah.
How have you yourself been managing this? I know it's a curveball question for you, but I think it's quite, you know, a reasonable question, because I'm sure you're, you know, there will be times where there'll be like dips and peaks and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I there are definitely times where I was affected, and I basically I've reached a few low points throughout my degree life. I'm gonna admit that. And how I cope with it? Well, for me, the most important thing that I need to do, or that anyone needs to do, is that you need to acknowledge your suffering. Because if you don't acknowledge it, you're gonna keep moving on like normal. But at this state, you're not exactly at your normal anymore. You're already underperforming. You're already going through something. So you need to acknowledge it, and you need to address it, right? You need to make sure that you do something about it. You can't just keep going on. If a car does not have any fuel anymore, you can't just keep going. You have to stop. You have to refuel. You have to refill it. So the first thing is to acknowledge it, to make sure, like, okay, you know what, like, have I actually been sleeping too much? Have I been sleeping too little? Am I getting enough sleep? Have I been eating differently? Like, I've noticed a lot of people how they start having unusual eating patterns. Maybe they don't eat at all, and they just eat whatever they like. Like, maybe, okay, suddenly it's 4 p.m. I feel like eating McDonald's. I'll just do that. But then the rest of the day they don't eat. Or maybe some of them, they're like, oh no, you know, I'll just drink coffee and then that's it. Or some of them eat too much. So has this been something that you've always been doing, you know? And what about what about when you converse with people? Do you feel like you're actually present? Do you feel like you're actually listening to people? Or do you feel like you're just zoning out all the time? Do you feel like when you are listening to your favorite song, it doesn't really hit you as hard anymore, you know? Or like when you want to do your hobbies, you feel like, nah, I don't feel like it today, and you feel like that every day. So that's the first thing, acknowledging. The second thing is, when now that you know that, okay, I am definitely going through something, then for me, I would like to talk to a friend. I know this is difficult for some people, but I like to talk to a friend, because for me, I think that finding a sense of commonality is very healing. You know, because as humans, we are social beings. We feel that it is important for us to find this need to belong, right? You don't want to feel alone. When you feel alone, it feels scary. It feels like you feel closed off. Finding that sense of sorry,
Hazika, that's also another element where, you know, let's keep the face, you know, face
right.
where we
Yeah.
tell everybody, especially our young peers, simply because we have this fear, and I think this is not also prevalent among young professionals, but those who are already in the corporate world. We like Edmund was saying, we don't exactly go around and say, hey, I'm going through this.
Yeah.
In case somebody plays it around and use it against us.
Absolutely.
So I think in the choice of picking up somebody to talk it over, what would be that one thing you advocate, picking up what kind of friend to talk to? Would you go to a, of course, counselor, but anyone else?
When it comes to someone personal to you and it comes to like opening up, the thing is, you're absolutely right. That's the scary thing about opening up. It's like a double-edged sword. So that's the thing about it. And personally, I don't like opening up to everyone as well. So for me, I think that the answer to this question is that person themselves should know the answer, because they know best who they think they can trust. They know best who is someone close to them, who is someone that is reliable for them. Because there's no cookie cutter, like, oh, there's, if this person, if they if they have liked your Instagram stories, then they're definitely the one. You should tell them, like, no, that's not how it is. Like, it's this answer is very personal to each person. Maybe for some people it's someone who has been with them for a long time. Maybe for some people it's someone who actually listens. So
and not necessarily family members as well, I think.
Yeah, not necessarily, because I've heard stories of people where their families are not very accepting of their condition. It can be quite difficult. And if you know that your family is not very accepting, then maybe don't reach out to them just yet. Like, you don't want to take your first step with something so risky.
That's such a tough. Right. Thank you so much, Hazika.
Thank you, Ms. Hani.
That's quite an insightful perspective coming from, someone who's still so close to the university life, right? Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about high functioning depressed professional. And I think this is where, looks can be deceiving at the same time. And I think all of us have been, have gone through or meeting someone who is seemingly okay, who is seemingly all right, that everything is going on good for this particular person because this person is highly functioning. But not many people realize that this particular individual is going through some really hard times, mentally, and still going on. So high functioning depressed professional at work or even in universities, definition and how can we spot one? I think this is one of a very important question. Can I please invite Dr. George to speak on high functioning depressed professional and how do we spot one? They all look okay, but it's okay not to be okay. But how do we spot one, sir?
Well, I mean, it's still a controversial thing. There is no ICD-10 or DSM-5 criteria for a high functioning depressed professional. It's just, a colloquial term. And so, of course, major depression is a very common mental disorder. I mean, WHO estimates that 264 million people of all ages experience depression. But to make a psychiatric diagnosis, you have to have social and occupational dysfunction. That's what tells the difference between, common mental health issues like stress, having a bad day, maybe, you had an argument with your spouse. You're not having depression as an illness. You may be feeling low and down on that particular day, or maybe for those few days to come, following that, but it doesn't fit the criteria of a diagnosis. So, sometimes we throw these words around, but it really doesn't fit into a criteria. Of course, there are certain types of depression. For example, there's dysthymia, which is a persistent depression disorder. And in that disorder, sometimes people are fairly functional. they can still function. And so they can be seen as high functioning, but deep down they're suffering because they have all these negative thoughts and feelings. But it's something that is persistent. It's continuous for more than, it goes on for about 2 years. Secondly, depression can be a symptom of many other different conditions. I mean, somebody with a personality disorder may have a low mood and on that day be, but typically when the person is not in a low mood, they're the most highest functioning person because work is their remedy. And then, of course, there are people who, because of depression, may actually resort to some things as self-medication. I mean, typically it's alcohol or drugs, but in some, it may be activities like work, and use work in especially mild major depression, use work as a way of coping. So everything else is given up and, they're useless in that, but overdo their work. And then they get very sensitive and maybe something doesn't become so productive,
Right.
So
right.
yeah, I think it's a colloquial term. It's not really a diagnostic term.
Sure. Well, we are, the Joes and Janes from the streets, but we do know, I mean, in terms of my work as well as a career coach, we get, or rather I receive so many clients who seems to be successful in their work, but, there's always some void that they're feeling, it sounded depressive and all that. And people are wondering why, when you have everything and yet they feel nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, I think it's in the end of the day, it's finding a work-life balance. And when you don't have that, then you're over relying on just one domain of your life. I mean, we all have so many domains, and if you put all our eggs in one basket, that's just going to put yourself at high risk. I think we need to reflect and audit ourselves. Do I have, all my domains, strong and providing me the protection and the help that I need? I mean, domain of love, the domain of, work and career or study, the domain of recreation and exercise, and then, and then the interconnection with the community,
I love what you just said, because I think it just makes sense. Life does not made up of only one element, right? And I think it's all interconnected in terms of spirituality, family, spouse, community, for example. Even though I've met quite a number of people who said that, oh, I'm so introvert. I think it's a preference. And I think also self-realization that, life is just not one element. Thanks so much. Now, I'm still going on this particular topic. I know that it's a colloquial term for this particular scenario of an individual, but let's move on to Edmund on this particular topic, this specific topic as well, from the corporate perspective. High functioning individuals, but they're having tough times in terms of mental wellness. Have you ever observed this in your experience, Edmund?
Okay, actually, for high functioning depressed professional at work, right? As Prof was saying, it's actually it's actually also very hard to really determine whether the person is having this kind of depression or not, because they are functioning normally. Okay, and how do you identify the person? Because in employees' perspective, right? If let's say you are functioning normally or you are doing perfectly, you are fine. You're just a normal worker doing whatever things that you do best. And how? But because this is like you are telling the employees that this staff is having problem, but in the meantime, everything is okay. So how do you justify that he or she having a problem? It's actually very hard to define. Even though if let's say I'm let's say this is a professional psychiatrist or therapist, right? Even he or she also having a difficulty. Is it you having a temporary problem, your personal problem, or really you were really going into mental health? It's very hard to diagnose. So in perspective, in the company side, right? If let's say you are functioning perfectly, it's okay. I don't know more.
You're good.
Yes, correct. But of course, if let's say we look into further, right, we also know that the person, yes, is functioning normally, but if let's say we look into a long term or long run,
Yes.
sooner or later the productivity will go down
Yes.
because
Yes.
they
It will
overwork
down.
themselves. They are overworked themselves. They are burnt out, and that time only employers coming in asking, hey, what happened to you? Hey, why your productivity is down? Hey, you look burnt out. But by that time, I think it's a little bit too late.
Yes.
It's a little bit too late. But there's no guidelines that tell us that this is alarming.
Yes. What do we do? What do we
Yes,
do?
what do we do? It's just working normally. It's just like normal stuff. But how do we identify? Maybe Prof could highlight us.
I don't know.
But I think there's no I would say don't really have a guideline or is clearly outlined in the employee handbook or in anywhere that person having issue. But for me, if let's say I think some of the ways that we could really educate or bring out the culture, right, is always normalized to talk about the mental health or your problems issue, because end of the day, right, it's just because people are not sharing out because people are looking like you are a weird person or you are overreacting. You don't like, hey, why you want to share me your personal problem? Is your problem. But they don't really understand that all these small matters, right, it really will trigger out the stress within the mental health or depression. All this started from small. But I think we really need to work hard to really normalize, like, hey, talk about mental health. Actually, it's quite normal. Everybody have an issue in life. Whether your somebody left you, relationship issue, financial issue, just talk out normally. So even though and it's also very high, I also very important to work-life balance, to really sometimes, right, I know sometimes work can be a lot. And I did see some of my managers or even some staff, right? I say, hey, go on leave. I can't. I have a lot of work haven't been done.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just say, go. It's okay. Work never ending. But a lot of them is scared because they can't cope. They scared. If let's say I left for 2 weeks, right, the work will pile for 2 weeks. So there's no work-life balance, which also trigger. So third one, like, if let's say for those who are also having some issues, right, they as well as Prof was saying, they are trying to make it as routine as possible. I mean their work. They try to use the works to actually make the problem disappear temporarily.
Is that even possible?
Yeah, it's possible. Actually, when you focus on work, right, you don't think about your families at home. Let's say you are having a problem with your family, right? If you are focused at work, you will keep doing your work, but you don't want to focus at home. Because why? Once you go home, you will always think about the issue, maybe money or whatever, financial. Some people will use work to really occupy their time. I do have some friends who are like that. They really can work very, I would say, very productive.
Yeah.
But when at night, right, they feel lonely.
Yes.
Shivering. They scared because they have nothing to occupy their thinking. The thinking keep on coming, the negative thoughts. What is the purpose I'm coming here? What should I do? There's the night is coming, I have no one to talk to. So they keep on thinking, and this will create the negative thought, negative energy, and at last they keep on thinking negatively, and in the end, either way, I think it's time for me to end my life, this and that. But of course, this is only on my opinion. Of course, we need professional to say to really anchor on that fact, like Alvin and Dr. Philip. But I always think that we really need to really educate or really bring out that mental health is something very normal. 3 out of 5 or 1 out of 5 people, right, is having mental health. You believe it or not, right? Actually, even though we look healthy, right, maybe at some point of the time we also have mental issue.
Yes.
It's just that we don't really prolong it or really diagnose that, oh, you have depression. Because I believe at any one time, right, you have depression or you feel stressful.
Yep.
Either it's by work, like me as a HR, I'm very stressful in terms of getting enough nurses to come in. Sometimes the productivity through the MC issue, I also feel stressed. But how do you release the stress? That is very important, because no matter how in life, right, as a human, right, we have to take stress in order for us to grow. That's the way of life. You can't say that in our life we cannot have stress. Yes, we have to have stress in order for us to grow, in order for us to really fight for what we want in life. So the only way is that those who are having mental problem is that they don't have a way to release their stress, or maybe like Hazika was saying, to find a friend to talk. But in order to find a friend to talk, it's also two ways. Either the person that you find, they will talk bad about you in the back, or keep on telling people, hey, this person is overreacting, too emotional, sharing all of this personal problem. So it's also very important. That's why in the general line, right, we can always call befriender or Kase helpline. All this actually is much more appropriate because they were trained. Of course, they can't really like accompany you 24 hours, but at least you have a channel to share your problem. And that's why even in Thomson Hospital also, because due to a pandemic, last time, the healthcare was overworked because of everybody want to admit in, and then people go on quarantine, very lean resources. So what we do is that we allow our staff to use their outpatient benefit to see psychiatrists, to see counselors.
Wow.
Because we think, because we are not the professional to decide whether the person have the mental health or not. They have to share their problems with the professional. Sometimes just like talking out or just treasure out the things that you have, right, it also a sort of relief. So also in Asia also we practice one thing. We do lately we do hire a few fresh grad nurses, but they are also having mental disorder, depression. Initially,
that is sad.
yeah. So initially we don't know, because we can't really even you do pre-employment checkup. If you don't really tell us, we will not know.
How did you manage to spot this?
Actually, we found out in terms of the productivity. Initially stage is okay, but after that we saw that he doesn't not confident. Everything that he or she do, right, he keep on asking, am I doing the right thing? What is the next step? What's the procedure? Even a simple step, you are starting to ask for clearance or verification, which means that you are really doubtful about your next step. And slowly when we question further, he only start to say, yeah, I've been seeing these doctors when during the uni time. I thought it's okay. So that's why I never share, because I scared that if I share with you, you never hire me. So these are some of the normal things that people keep on thinking. If I declare, will it affect my performance? Will it affect my promotion? Will it affect my work or not? So this is also some of the criteria that a lot of those having mental problem are thinking. Because some, of course, no doubt, some of the employers do really think of this, because what if I hire you and suddenly you are depressed or anything happened? What happened to my business?
All the investment.
Yes, correct. And that's why what we do for her is that we tell her, we give her several options. Because she was staying in our hostel, we also worry that she will do something negative. So what we do for her is that we arrange her roommate to be with her every time. So means that when work time, we arrange together, going back together, come back together.
Right. So
that's the first. Yes, correct. And then after that, slowly we ask, I will take you out from clinical, you do some clerical work. Are you okay with that? So he start to do, and then after that, of course, she did mention, if I can't cope, I think I want to resign and really rest. Yeah. Although he have a bond with us, we said, okay, it's okay, no worries, no need to pay the bond, we just go. So it's all up to the company. How do you see this?
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And we're still on the same topic. Can I invite Alvin to just elaborate a little bit on still the same topic, high functioning individuals who are going through some challenges, in terms of the mental wellness. Some of us may be experiencing, well, some of us, or rather quite a number of us are experiencing insomnia, restlessness, and, difficulty in concentrating. Does this make it easier for us who are not, clinically trained, to observe depression, anxiety, and all that, to kind of pick up signs? What can we do?